Hi friends, it's Lila Little bringing you another episode of Rabbit Tales, The Adventures of Lila and Bandit. This time, I'm going to share some rabbit shenanigans. Shenanigans are common for a few bunnies in our house. Our human says that shenanigans can mean a few different things, like one of the bunnies being mischievous. Bandit is a great example. He has a bit of a mischievous way about him. He is always getting into some kind of trouble. He doesn't mean any harm, he just has a habit of doing things that the human doesn't want us bunnies doing. One time, Bandit tried to convince me and the other rabbits that we needed to dig under the fence. He said that he wanted to explore the big world outside. In fact, he's talked about this a few times. He is certain that just beyond that fence, there's a world of adventure that is just waiting to be had by us bunnies. Something much different from what we have here at home. I keep telling Bandit that the human put up the fences and boundaries for our own protection. She said that there were lots of predators in the world, and some of them only stayed out of our yard because those tall fences were keeping them out. Bandit always said the same thing. He was well equipped to deal with any predator threat that we might encounter. It didn't matter whether it was in the yard or outside the yard. Bandit was highly trained and practiced in rabbit karate skills. No predator was going to mess with him, and since it was his job to protect me and the other rabbits, the predators also would not mess with us. I asked Bandit whether or not he thought he could fight off a big dog. After all, dogs are much larger than us rabbits. Some dogs are so big and scary that even the noise they make can scare us rabbits to death. Bandit didn't seem afraid at all. When talking about the dogs, he said that size is irrelevant. Big dogs, little dogs, it's all the same. When rabbits are properly trained in defensive maneuvers, according to Bandit, predators don't stand a chance. I always had to remind Bandit that even though he was confident in his ability to protect everyone here, the human had made very strict rules about us staying inside the yard. She never let us dig near the fences or even be alone during outdoor playtime. She was always outside with us, no matter what. As he had so many times before, Bandit reminded me that the human is outside because she is not trained, and she needs protection from threats. Bandit would say, "What if something happens while human is inside and we're not in there? What then, Lila?" There was a long pause, and then he would answer his own question. "I'll tell you what would happen, Lila. She would come running out of the house looking for me. She would probably come hide behind me, waiting for me to assess the situation before she felt comfortable going back inside. That is why the human is outside with us." I always sigh heavily when we have this conversation, and then I respond to Bandit. "Is it possible that the human is outside with us so that she can protect us?" Bandit always just shakes his head. "Lila, you just do not understand rabbit security and how it all works." So I always quickly change the subject. We've had this conversation over and over and over. It wasn't the first time we've talked about it, and it definitely wouldn't be the last. One day, Bandit and I and a whole bunch of other bunnies were out in the yard playing. It was sunny and warm that day. The lawn was nice and cool. Bandit was by the garden beds waiting for Human to look the other way so he could eat some carrot greens. He knew he wasn't supposed to do that, but he was relentless. When the gardens were growing vegetables, Bandit was always nearby waiting for the opportunity to sneak the greens that we are only allowed to have when Human gives them to us. Oreo is a black and white mini lop rabbit who was rescued right off the streets. She had to go through a lot of work with our human to settle down after she was brought here. She had settled down quite a bit. Her experience living on the streets made her more cautious than the rest of us. Human always said, "Oreo, you have street smarts, don't you?" And it was true. Oreo did have street smarts. She showed us day after day after day just how smart she was. If Human ever put her in an enclosure, she would get out and run around the house anyway. If Human left a new bag of pellets on the shelf just out of our reach, Oreo would find a way to jump up there and open that bag. She learned to open drawers all by herself and get her own treats and toys. Human kept those things in closed drawers so that us bunnies didn't get into them and eat too much or play with new toys that she was saving for later. That didn't matter to Oreo. If Oreo wanted something, Oreo found a way to get it. She was known to all of us as the house escape artist, and that is still true today. If anyone wants a pet gate moved or wants a snack when Human is sleeping, we call on Oreo. Anyway, we were all out in the yard this one day, and Bandit was going on and on about his plans to get on the other side of the fence to explore the big world that lies beyond. Oreo heard Bandit talking about it and asked him, "Hey Bandit, I was just listening to your plans to try to escape the yard and go beyond these fences. You want to explore the big world outside, right?" "Yes," Bandit said. "Finally, someone who understands me. There's a lot of exploring to do out there. I figure we can all sneak out while Human is busy working in the garden. She won't notice. We can just hop around out there for a while and then slip back through the fence unnoticed. I plan to dig a hole underneath the fence one of these days." "I understand exactly what you mean," Oreo responded. "I'll tell you, it has been a good long time since I was on the other side of those fences." "What did you see out there?" Bandit asked her. "Well," Oreo responded, "you'd really have a lot of adventure if you did go outside this yard. One time, I had a dog chase me all the way across someone's yard. In fact, he bit me right on the end of my tail. See?" Oreo turned herself around and put her tail toward Bandit so he could get a good view of her hind end. "Wow," Bandit said. "I can't really see any marks or anything, but that must have been exciting." "Yes," Oreo said. "If you like that kind of excitement, you will find plenty of it just on the other side of these fences. In that situation, I was lucky. The dog only got a mouthful of my fur. He didn't get his teeth in my skin, but he would have killed me had I not been such a good sprinter. What did happen is his barking and chasing made my heart beat so fast for so long that to this day, I have heart problems." Bandit just looked at her, wide-eyed. He said nothing. "That was just one example of my adventures out in the neighborhood," Oreo said. "I was free to roam around at night or roam around during the day, but there were lots and lots of dogs and cats and other animals and predator birds, owls, things that do not understand us rabbits. Their first instinct is always to bark or chase us or try to catch us. Some animals would see me and make terrible high-pitched screeching noises. Their long claws would come out, or they would bare their teeth at me. There aren't very many friends out there for us rabbits." Bandit just continued to gaze at her and responded, I didn't know that. There's also the problem of not finding clean water or having any hay or good pellets, so you get really sick. There's lots of grass in this area, but too much of that makes your tummy hurt all the time if that's all you have to eat. If you sneak into a human's garden, they might try to put you in a small cage and keep you there the rest of your life, or even try to hurt you or let their kids hurt you." Bandit looked astonished. "Our human doesn't do that when I get in the garden," he said. "No, she doesn't," Oreo responded. "Our human is kind and she understands us rabbits, but a lot of humans don't understand us very well, so they don't know how to treat us properly." "Well," Bandit said, "every situation has its risks, right? Even in this yard, we have seen yard clowns. That is a terrible threat." "Clowns?" Oreo responded. "Are you talking about when you were standing in front of the shiny barbecuer over there, the one that human never uses? Over there on the deck." Oreo pointed across the yard at the deck where human kept her barbecue. "Well, of course," Bandit said. "All you have to do is stand in front of it and you can clearly see a yard clown. It will stare right back at you. In fact, the one I always see looks just like I do." Oreo smiled and shook her head. She said, "I'll tell you one more adventure I had while I was out exploring that big world you want to see beyond the fence." "Excellent," Bandit replied. He expected to hear something very exciting. Surely there were good things about living outside the confines of a house in a big fenced yard. "One night," Oreo began, "on the coldest night of the year, it had been snowing. I'd been out on the street a while. My humans dumped me quite a long time before that. I was used to living on the street, but it was definitely survival mode day to day. Well, on this day, there was ice everywhere. A dog had chased me from my hiding spot underneath his human's deck. Even though it was cold under that deck, at least I was dry and I was out of the snow. I just needed to rest and keep myself dry for a while, stay out of the harsh weather." "Right," Bandit said. "What happened after the dog chased you into the street?" "Well," Oreo said, "a car drove by and splashed icy water all over me. And since I'm a rabbit and we shouldn't get wet, it put me into shock. The dog got wet too, but his human came outside and called him into the house where it was warm and dry, so he was okay. I was left in the street, soaking wet in freezing cold weather. Ice was starting to form on my fur. I nearly died that night." Oreo glanced over at Bandit. Once again, he said nothing. He just sat there with his eyes wide and a horrified look on his face. Next day, a couple of strangers saw me and scooped me up out of the road where I was trying to find some grass to eat. I was stumbling around. I couldn't stand on my paws very long, so I was definitely in bad shape by then. These two nice humans took me to their home, and then they got a hold of our human. Our human brought me here, to this place. I did have to go see the Whitecoats because I was very sick from being out on my own for so long with no human to properly care for me, but I got better, and I've been here ever since." "Well," Bandit said, "that doesn't sound like a good adventure at all." Oreo finished chewing grass that she had pulled from the lawn and responded, "Most of my adventures were hardships. They were not fun. We were not meant to be outside of these fenced yards, Bandit. We are not like wild rabbits. We have it good here. We have lots of space and lots of hay and fresh water. Plus our human feeds us fresh greens and good pellets. Just beyond those fences is danger. Take it from me. It is danger that no one here is prepared to face." Bandit just lowered his head to forage a dandelion that was growing where he had been sitting. "Well," Bandit said as he finished chewing, "I never said I wanted to stay outside the fence. I just wanted to go out for a few quick adventures and then come right back." Oreo shook her head again and responded, "Better think long and hard about that. A lot of bunnies have hopped away from home and never found their way back." I had been watching this exchange between Oreo and Bandit. I never knew Oreo all that well before this day, but as I watched that conversation occur, I had a lot more respect for her. From the time she arrived here, I just always figured she was a really out-of-control character, someone who was all about shenanigans and mischievous, someone who always wanted to get her own way. I didn't realize why she was the way she was. I didn't know she had so many awful and difficult experiences before she came here. Her humans had dumped her, she had to live out on the street and go through harsh seasons where it was super hot and then freezing cold until she almost died. And it was amazing to me that she was willing to share that with Bandit so that Bandit understood that sometimes you need to be grateful for where you are and not always be looking for the adventures that can get you into a lot of trouble. To this day, when Bandit starts talking about rabbit shenanigans that might include hopping beyond our fenced yard, I immediately go get Oreo. She agrees to talk to him. She patiently tells him more so-called adventures that she had while she was living on her own without proper human care. It only takes a little while until Bandit dreams up the next rabbit shenanigan, and it starts all over again.